front of you. We're holding in the Gemara, Masechta Megillah, Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis, the Mishnah. 23b, about 5 lines from the top of the page, and 7 lines. We are learning a Mishnah and continuing the theme of Masechta Megillah, which is discussing the ideas, the laws of a shul, what it takes to build a shul, the laws of davening. Till now, we've been discussing in this chapter primarily the laws of Torah reading, aliyas, and Haftorah. Now we're going to go to the concept, to the idea of a minyan. Right, so just to make it a little bit lighter, you're supposed to start with a joke, right? So here's 2 short ones over here. It says, we got a call from a shul down the block. We find him a 10th man for the minyan. It's a bureau of missing persons. And we only got 9 men. What are we going to do? Get the minyan man. And then you have the chassid over here who asked directions to the nearest minyan. And here's where they brought him to.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, you have to mention what the labels here, the filet mignon in the very first Mendy and the golem.
Yep.
I don't know if it was your idea, but the very good one. The Mishnah. The Mishnah will list different times that a minyan, 10 Jewish men are required. The Gemara will give the source from where we know that a minyan is 10 Jewish men over the age of 13. The Mishnah will give a list of times that a minyan is needed. Some of them are familiar to most everybody, most people. Some of them are probably very unfamiliar because we don't really do this nowadays. It's only things that existed back then, and today probably only certain small communities or small segments actually continue this. But it's called an idea, it's Masechta Brachos, it's brought down a lot, called Porsin al Shema. So let's read the Mishnah inside. All of these things, which the Mishnah will list, require a minyan, require 10 Jewish men. It says the Mishnah, Ein Porsin al Shema. When you say Shema at night, when you daven Ma'ariv, for sure you want to daven with a minyan, with 10 Jewish men. When it comes there were some times that it would happen, but very rarely, I'm sure, that people would actually come late to shul. Ever happened? Sometimes people come late to shul because the shul starts at an ungodly early hour, about 10 a.m., right? As they come late to shul, they miss the blessings of Shema. However, there is a mitzvah. People still want to daven with a minyan, and people don't want to miss davening with a minyan. So if 10 people gather together in a shul, or anywhere for that matter, and each of them, it's by night, each of them already davened by themselves, Ma'ariv, without a minyan. It's also by Shacharis as well. So what they could do is do a half of a Shema. The word Parsin comes from the word prusa, which means a part, a piece. You could break in pieces. A prusa is a piece of challah, which is not a complete challah. So they say just part of davening, which primarily, if you have a siddur and there's 2 blessings before Shema, by night there's 2 blessings or 3 blessings after, and depending on the nusach, and by day there's 1 blessing after. So what you do is you get the 10 people together who did not hear Kaddish, who did not hear Baruch Hu, and for Shacharis who did not hear Kedusha, and they all get together as a minyan. They don't daven the entire Shacharis, but one of them stands up, says Kaddish, Baruch Hu, the first blessing of Shema. First blessing of Shema has the words Kadosh, 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 holy, holy, holy. And a davar shebekdusha, something of holiness, needs a minyan. And since we say the words kadosh, 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 you need 10 people. And then you say Chazar Shashatz, repeating the Shemona Esrei out loud of the first 3 brachas, the first 3 blessings. It's called a parsin al Shema. This is a partial Shema. Just the first blessing of Shema, Kriya Shema, and the first 3 blessings of Shemona Esrei. That's the way Rashi explains. Other Rishonim understand it to work a little bit differently. An interesting, you could say, sort of humorous take on this Gemara comes from Masifsei Chachamim. It says, if you would tell people, you don't have to daven with a minyan. All you have to do is you could daven by yourself and just do half of you can only do half of davening, and it's counted like you daven with a minyan. So then people would always come late to shul. You would be encouraging such behavior. So they gave it a name, parsin al Shema, which means you have a piece. You only have you don't have the whole thing, you have just a part, in order to discourage people from doing this to begin with. Nowadays, it's a very uncommon thing to do. It's not really a thing that you see at all nowadays. The Rambam says the word person comes from the word pros aleinu. You know what the word pros means? With a sin, not a samach. It means to spread out.
Oh, yes.
So it means, the Rambam explains it to mean that person is to prepare, or like paris mapa, you spread out a tablecloth, makadesh. Paris can mean begin, which means you say the beginning of Shema, you say the preparation, one blessing of Shema, but you don't say the entire, all the blessings of Kriya Shema, of Shema, of Avas Olam, and all the blessings. And the reason why is because when you say Davar Shebekdusha, something with the word holiness, you need a minyan. So in order to have a shortened version of Shema, one needs to have a shortened version of the Ma'ariv. You need a minyan, and you repeat only the first 3 blessings of Shemona Esrei. The Ein Oivrin L'fnei HaTeva, and you cannot be a chazan. What does it mean being a chazan for prayer? The primary prayer is Shemona Esrei. So to say Chazar Shashatz, to repeat the repetition of Shemona Esrei, you need 10 men over there. That is the main part of davening. To the extent that if, let's say, you're in a shul which has 10 people, 10 men by Shemona Esrei in the morning by Shacharis, and then one of the minyan left after Chazar Shashatz, after the repetition of Shemona Esrei, you still continue saying Asher V'Otzion and say the Kaddish afterwards, even without a minyan, because it's part of Shemona Esrei. It goes after the Shemona Esrei, which had a minyan. So you cannot do the repetition, the Chazar Shashatz of Shemona Esrei, unless a minyan is present, and the Gemara will explain why a minyan must be present for this. Very nice in Eskapayim, and one cannot have the blessing of the Kohanim. Right? So, for example, this is just an example of what it means. The blessing of the Kohanim, right? Where the Kohanim lift their hands and bless everyone, like this. That could only be done with a minyan. Cannot be done without a minyan. Again, the Gemara will give the institution for this. But the institution of Birchas Kohanim goes back all the way to Moshe Rabbeinu, that on the very first day that the Mishkan was dedicated, Moshe and Aaron blessed the people. The Rashba says that whenever you say Hashem's name in public, you need a minyan. Because Hashem's name is so holy that you can only say a holy thing if you have 10 Jewish men present. The idea of a minyan when 10 Jewish people are there in one place together. Of course, it says in Tanya how the holiness in that place is so great that if even one malach, one angel, would come there, he would burn up, he would disappear from the great holiness that's existent. And he says that's even if 10 Jewish men are in one place without doing anything holy. Even let's say you have a golf course, so to speak, and you have 10 Jewish men in the golf course playing golf, even there the Kedusha is so great, 10 Jewish men. And if you, for sure, if they're gathering together and saying words of Torah and Kedusha and sanctifying Hashem, the holiness is incomparable. And it says that Hashem never turns away from the tefillas, from the prayers of a minyan, of the public, of 10 people together. In addition to that, it says that Hashem is close to a minyan, and only other time Hashem is so close is during the 10 days of Yaser Simei Tshuva, the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The Ein Korin B'Torah, and you cannot read the Torah in shul without a minyan, unless you have 10 men together. The Ein Maftirin B'Navi, and you cannot say the half Torah after davening unless you have a minyan. The Ein Oisin Maimad Umoshav. This is not common today, and especially in Chabad, it's even the lesser version of this is not practiced today. It's after a funeral, while still in the cemetery, so the person gets buried, whoever passed away, and then all the mourners, which is the children and those who have to sit shiva for the person, they would stand up and sit down inside the cemetery in 7 different places. Because in Koheles, Ecclesiastes, by Shlomo HaMelech, he uses the word hevel 7 times. Hevel means vain. Hevel means pointless. He says, hevel avalam amer Shlomo, hevel avalam amer Koheles, hevel hakol havel. Pointless, pointless says Shlomo, pointless, pointless says Koheles. Pointless, pointless, everything is pointless. Hevel means like air. That's what it means in modern Hebrew. It means hot air. So you say someone is malei hevel, Yassi, malei hevel, it's full of hot air. And to say that everything in this world is not meaningful, right? Only meaningful is what we do to prepare for the world to come. What we do in Chabad is, after going back home from the cemetery, you wash your hands, negavaser, 1, 2, 1, 2. You dry your hands, and after you don't dry it, you let it air dry, because it's a tumah on the water, so you're not supposed to. In that specific situation, you don't dry your hands. And after air dries, then you say Yoshev B'Seser Elyon, which is a chapter of Tehillim, chapter 90, but it's very connected with the journey to the next world. And the pasuk is the verse, Ki malach yitzav alach shmorcha b'chol torkecha, Ki, when, or malach of its angels, yitzava, you will guard for you, l'shmorcha, to guard you wherever you're going. At every one of those times, whenever we get up to that verse, so it's about halfway through Yoshev B'Seser, we say one more word per time. It's like this, chapter 90. Just bring it up here on the screen just to explain it a little bit easier. Sorry, this is the audio.
I think it's 91.
Oh, 91? 91. All right, Tefillah Moshe is 90. Thank you. Right. So we say verses 1 through 7, Yoshev B'Seser Elyon, Hashem dwells in the Most High. And we say it till about halfway through. And then verse 11 has 7 words. And we say the first 10 verses of chapter 91 and say the first word of verse 11. And then you stand up and go to another location. And then you say verses 1 through 10 and the first 2 words of verse 11. And then you go to the third location. You sit in 7 different places, and you say each time adding one more word of this verse, and the last time you complete the entire chapter 91. That's how we do Maimed U'Maishav. That's how we do the sitting and the standings. But during the times of the Mishnah, the Avelim, the mourners themselves, would stand up and sit in 7 different places in the cemetery, and everybody would comfort them, say words of comfort to them. And there are different words that they would say, and the Gemara will explain why you need a minyan for this procedure to be done. But there will be a whole procedure. They would tell them sit down, stand up, people would weep, and they would hear a eulogy. Supposedly, it's before bringing I've seen other circles, not Chabad, which does this, as they bring the aron, they bring the coffin, the beard to be buried. They stop 7 times and say different kapitlach. When Chabad, we go straight, and you say it while they're doing it, and it's something which says it's meant specifically for the Chever Kadisha, for the burial society to do. That's who does it by Chabad. Not other people don't do it before the burial. After the burial, everyone does it alone. We don't do it with a minyan, and we don't do the whole procedure, which the Gemara here about Masechet Baba Basra, Masechet Tainis describes. So this needs a minyan. The standing and sitting 7 times in the cemetery, at a funeral, giving tribute to the person who passed away, also needs a minyan. And we did not do the blessing for the mourners. What is the blessing of the mourners? It's a certain blessing which they would do in the house of the mourners, or right after the burial. The mourners would say a certain bracha, a certain consolation, and the Gemara will explain what it is. And this bracha, this blessing, needs a minyan as well. And it needs a minyan of people consoling them. The Tanchumei Avelim, the Birchas Avelim, the blessing of the mourners, is done before the burial, and then Tanchumei is another whole procedure, which is also you mentioned the Hashem's name, which is done after the burial, which is called Tanchumei, the comforting of the mourners. Consolation to the mourners, and everybody, the way it works is that by a burial, everyone who's present forms rows, and the mourners walk through, and everyone says, may you be comforted. And we only do that if there is minyan. If there's no minyan, they do not do that. Ve'ein mizamnin ubirchas chasanim. When we have a sheva brachas, a meal, a chasan, and a kala, we say a special introduction, a special beginning of benching. It says, we bless Hashem, which the blessing of Hashem, Baruch Elokeinu, blesses our God, who has brought the joy into his abode, the Chanukah Mishlei, which we have eaten from him. Other nuschais, other versions add a whole paragraph by someone named Dunash. It says the fire asir v'gam charoin was yashir nechenu maged tzedek sheberchas Aaron ne'Aaron. That is only said with a minyan. So to say the Sheva Brachas can only be done with a minyan. Without a minyan, you can't say Sheva Brachas, 7 blessings of the chuppah, and you 7 Sheva Brachas by all the time that you bench throughout the week and throughout the year. For that matter, you can also you can do Sheva Brachas throughout the year after the marriage. The aim is Zamnin B'Hashem. When it comes to blessing, so the Rabbi Sam Ravel benchen, right? Or Hablam and Ivrech gather together. B'shus Marana Rabban Rabbi Say Nevarech She'achal Mishlei. Let us bless Hashem, whom has given us our sustenance, what to eat. We have a minion say, Elokeinu shechanu mishaloi. Let us bless our God, Elokeinu, which we have eaten from him. So you only say Elokeinu, Hashem's name, if you have a minion by benching. Pachas me'asara, unless you have at least a minion, but fewer than 10 people, you don't do this. You don't call out Hashem's name with less than 10. Uvekarkalis tisha v'koyin v'adam kayetz behen. This last is a very unique halacha which does not apply now and only apply in the times of the Beis Hamikdash. If somebody consecrated says, I want to give the value of my land to the Kohen, to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Holy Temple, or I want to give the value of a person, my value, to the Beis Hamikdash. So there is a story brought down in the Medrash Eicha about there was a certain woman who, when her child was born, she weighed the child and she gave the weight of the child in gold to the Beis Hamikdash. And every year on the child's birthday, she would weigh the son, she would weigh the child, and every year she would give the difference in weight that the child gained that year in gold to the Beis Hamikdash. And her son were both killed by the Romans during the destruction. But there is, if somebody wants to give my value, you don't do the value based of weight in gold. I mean, a human life is valueless. So how can you value? I want to donate my worth to the Beis Hamikdash. If you do Eidech, biblical worth, everyone has a certain, based on your age, doesn't go based on your health, doesn't go based on your strength, goes based on your age, that there's a certain value to give to the Beis Hamikdash. But if you want to say my value, my worth, you don't do your net worth. You do is your physical worth. If a person had to be sold as a slave, how much would they cost? Right? How much would it cost to buy them? Or if I want to give my property, you don't go call up a mortgage company, right, or an assessor to assess your property. The Torah gave us a different type of assessment system, how to assess property if you want to donate it to the Beis Hamikdash. If you want to donate the value of the property, not the property itself, but the value of the property to the Beis Hamikdash. And Yikra. Just bring it up here on the screen because I already brought it up before. Got 22. If you want to bring the value of the person, you need to have a panel of 10 people together. It can't be done by one person. It has to be done by 10 people who are experts in assessing the value of property. Because since we're giving to the Beis Hamikdash, it's so important, you can't have just a sort of flimsy, a non-professional value. You have to have 10 people doing it. And the panel has to consist of 10 people, 10 men. And one of them has to be a kohen. The kohen, the tisha of a kohen, 9 of them plus a kohen. Why a kohen? Because even if the kohen is not an expert, you still have to have the kohen join the panel. Because since it's going to the Beis Hamikdash, a kohen will make sure that the Beis Hamikdash won't get shorted, won't be missing the amount that it's supposed to have. He'll do everything he can to make sure that the kohen is, the Beis Hamikdash is getting everything it's supposed to get. And the Adam, if somebody says, I am becoming a slave to the Beis Hamikdash, or I am donating a servant to the Beis Hamikdash. Now, the Beis Hamikdash does not need slaves, does not need servants, but you have to give the value of that slave or servant to the Beis Hamikdash. it also, like just like a property needs a panel of 10 people to assess it, so too the a person when they're assessed to the Beis Hamikdash, you need 9 people, nine adult Jewish men, plus a Kohen to be part of the panel assessing how much they are. Says the Gemara, Mina. An interesting question brought in the Mefarshim is how come the Megillah, the Mishnah did not mention among the things that need a minyan also the Megillah, reading the Megillah. If you read the Megillah early on the 11th, 12th, or 13th of Adar, you need a minyan. If you're reading the Megillah on the day of Purim, you can read it even if you don't have 10 men. Even without a minyan, you could read it. And just men Chabad is we don't make a bracha, a blessing afterwards, unless you have a minyan. But if you're reading the Megillah early on the 11th, 12th, or 13th of Adar, as a very first Mishnah in the Masechta, so then you do need a minyan. You cannot read it without a minyan individually. Why doesn't the Mishnah add that? And the answer given is the best case scenario, the best thing is that everyone should read the Megillah on the proper day. This that it could be read early in certain situations is only in order to assist those who have to read, for whatever reason, read the Megillah early. But at the proper time, but the best thing is that the Megillah should be read at its proper time. The reason you need a minyan to read the Megillah, if you're reading it early, is different than the reason you need a minyan for everything else. The reason why you need a minyan for every other time you need a minyan is in order to sanctify Hashem's name in public. As we're going to see, it says, "V'nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael." Parashas Kedoshim. I shall be sanctified among the Jewish people. And among the people is 10 men, 10 people. I'm going to learn that in the Gemara, the source of it. The reason why on Purim you can read the Megillah without a minyan is not because the Megillah needs a minyan or doesn't need a minyan. There's no name of Hashem inside of the entire Megillah. It by itself is not something that requires a minyan. It's not like the Torah reading which has Hashem's name in it. The reason why you need a minyan when you read the Megillah early is because Pirsumi Nisa, to publicize a miracle of Purim. So on the day of Purim, everybody knows that it's Purim that day. And therefore, you don't need, on the day of Purim itself, you don't need a minyan to hear the Megillah. But not on the day of Purim, where the entire world's busy going about the regular day-to-day lives. So therefore, you need a minyan in order to publicize a miracle, because publicizing the miracle of Purim is essential to the miracle of Purim. In addition, everything else that we listed in the Mishnah, if you don't have a minyan, you don't do it. Megillah is something you do even if you don't have a minyan. Everyone should read it to themselves. It's 11:43. We'll pause the Mishnah, pause the Gemara here. Tomorrow's Gemara actually has a very beautiful explanation from the Alter Rebbe and the Rebbe on tomorrow's Gemara. The source of a minyan of 10 people. How do you know a minyan is 10, not 5 and not 55?
We have actually with Abraham pleaded for this.
I haven't seen it for 10 people. Maybe
Yep.
maybe there's 10 tzaddikim. What is unique about those 10 tzaddikim? We're very interesting. The Chassam Sofer and other people, each of them weigh in. Some people bring a different source than the accepted source.
You also have as far as actually bidded for evil, 10 spies.
The 10 spies, right? There are 10 spies who spoke not good about the land of Israel. So therefore, that's our main source for knowing that a minyan is 10 people from the 10 spies. Why have a source from such people who were, the Torah calls them Rishayim, evil ones?
I mean, kind of with the 10 righteous that Abraham was different with the angel about it. There'd be 10 righteous, would you destroy Sodom?
Right. But from that's just 10 righteous people. But how do you see that they have to be together as one group? It needs to be called an Ada, a congregation. Right? The 10 spies were called the Ada Hara'ah, the evil congregation. There were only 10 spies. There were 12 spies, but Yeshua and Kalev spoke good about the land.
Yeah.
So only 10 spies were the evil congregation. It says the 10 sons of Yaakov went down to Egypt to bring food for Yaakov, for the Yaakov and their family. And it says, and they came to Egypt to go bring food betoich. Among the people who were coming to Egypt came the 10 sons of Yaakov. So some say we learn from the 10 sons of Yaakov. And that's actually brought down in the Gemara Yerushalmi. And the reason why they don't want to bring from the spies is because said the spies were evil. Let's do it. How about let's just do it right now inside. Says the Gemara, Minani Mili, what is a source that you need 10 people for a minyan? And it can't be virtual. You can't have 10 Jews on the phone or on Zoom. Amar B'chia Bar Abba says B'chia Bar Abba, Amar B'yechan, and then B'yechan. The Amar Kra, we learned in a verse, says, V'nigdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael. I shall be sanctified among the Jewish people, which shows Kol davar shebekdusha lo pachas me'asara. Whenever you have something which indicates an expression of holiness, of sanctity, you need at least 10 men, 10 people. But the Kedusha, as it says in Tanya, is so intense that even a malach, an angel, can't handle that holiness. My mashma, from where do we see that you need 10 people? The verse says, I will be made holy among the Jewish people. From where do you see that it's 10 Jewish people? Why not 2 Jewish people? Imagine a minyan was only 2 people. I don't know if the shuls would Exactly. It says the Gemara, my mashma, from where do we derive you need 10 people? The Tanya Rebchia says, Asya toich toich. We learn from the words toich toich, among. Gzeira shava. You have Gzeira shava is when 2 words in 2 areas of the Torah are the same. And we have a tradition going back to at least the times of the Tanoim that you could learn from one to the other. It says in Parshas Kedoshim, and I will sanctify myself among the Jewish people. And it says in Parshas Shalach, separate yourself from among the congregation. Moshe and Yeshua, Moshe sent 12 spies to Israel. 10 of them came back with negative reports. And he says, and Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, separate yourself from this congregation, and I will consume them in a moment. So we see it has the same word, mitoich, from among, as over here. And I will be sanctified among the nation, mitoich, among the Jewish people. Just like by the spies, there were 10 of them who said a negative report. So 10 grown male Jewish men. So when you say something of holiness, it has to be among the Jewish people, among 10 adult Jewish men. You learn from the word toich toich. The Yerushalmi, not wanting to learn from people who the Torah calls ra'ah, bad people or evil people, they learn from the sons of Yaakov. The Chassam Sofer, he tries saying, he says that the Torah is trying to teach us something, that if even 10 evil people could be called a minyan, then for sure any Jew could be called a minyan. And every Jew could be called a minyan. Right? So you should learn that you should try connecting yourself to good people, to good Jewish people. And in order not to desecrate Hashem's name, not to make a chilul Hashem, and you should learn not to be like them, But even people like them are worthy that Hashem could rest on them. Any 10 Jewish people, Hashem rest on them, and you need a minion. And even if you have a minion, and everyone in the minion is what some people classify a Russia, evil person, don't say, "Oh, I can't daven with this minion. This minion is not for me." There are some people which I know of a certain city in upstate New York, which there's a Chabad shul, a Chabad house, and as I say, many people park their shoes outside on Shabbos. And whenever there were guests, because it's in upstate New York, they would not want to daven with a minion, because how can we daven with people which are mechalel Shabbat, don't keep Shabbos? So Chassam Sofer says over here, you can see over here that even if someone who in their mind you classify as a Rasha, this person you could count them for a minion. We learned from here from the Meraglim. So he says we learn actually halacha from there. You can't say this person's good for a minion, this person's not. Obviously, every Jew could be counted for a minion.
I remember she's growing up, the Badarothanek shows Shabbos, see all these parked cars, and there's parking lots.
Definitely is, if there's certain halachas we could choose to be more strict in. And one of them is called Avas Yisrael, loving our fellow Jews. Right? And that's something where we're pretty strict on those halachas. And other halachas, those halachas are actually right in the beginning of Shulchan Aruch. Halachas about if someone's a sinner, then you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't count them for a minion. That's very, very deep into Shulchan Aruch. And first, let's get through the first part and keep everything in Shulchan Aruch properly before we get to that part. These are great tzaddikim, great Talmidei Chachamim, but of course, I'm saying explains Chassidus exactly the opposite. We learn specifically from the Meraglim, from the spies. Because actually, the spies, according to your learned Chassidus, the well-known explanation is that actually they were very holy people. And it says in the beginning, right? Hashem told Moshe, send them. Hashem told Moshe, send them out. Whether it was the spies, whether it was actually Korach, over here. They were very holy people, and they actually wanted well. And the reason why they came and brought a negative report on the land was because they were enjoying the life that they had in the desert. In the desert, no one had to work. No one had to make food. Food came down from Shemayim, from heaven. They were free to sit and learn the whole day. Their water, they were protected by the clouds. Their laundry was done for them. Hashem cleaned their clothes with the clouds. And they wanted to sit and learn Torah the whole day from Moshe Rabbeinu. What could be better than that? And they didn't want to go to the land of Israel, go to the Holy Land, because if you go to the land, we have to start planting crops. We have to start clocking for work and doing overtime and running after the sheep. And they don't want to have to do that, go to the market to buy, to sell. They wanted to sit and learn Torah the whole day and have a holy spiritual life, which is actually not a bad type of life to have. The problem was that there wasn't the intention of Hashem by creation of the world. Hashem has many millions or billions of beings, angels in heaven, which do exactly that. They don't work and they don't have to clock in for work and actually don't sleep. They do a lot better job than us learning Torah and praising Hashem. And for that, Hashem did not create this world. Hashem created this world in order to make a dira b'tachtonim, a dwelling place for himself down here in this world. But the Meraglim themselves, the spies themselves, they were holding at a very high spiritual level. And Moshe Rabbeinu sent them as leaders of the Jewish people, knowing that these people will look at everything through a holy lens, not through a physical lens, through a holy lens. And they wanted to continue this desert life of not having any distractions of any sort, no problems of any sort, and no problems of not health and not parnasa. And therefore, to learn, it says in Chelek Lamed Gimel Asicha, we learn specifically from the Meraglim, right? That there, when a person comes to daven, what's the point of davening?
Compares to Hashem.
Davening is tefillah. Tefillah means, comes from the word toifel. Toifel means to connect. Ha-toifel kli cheres, one who makes pottery on a wheel. And you connect different pieces of clay together to make a whatever type of vessel you're making. During davening is a time to be like the Meraglim, to be like the spies, to disconnect yourself from the world. And when you're davening, the world doesn't exist. Not to worry about your parnasa, not to worry about your mortgage, not to worry about what's going to be next. When one davens, one is meant to enter the world of the Meraglim at that time. So from where should we learn about the Meraglim, about the idea of a minyan? Specifically from those who wanted to learn and daven the entire day and be connected to Hashem. So on the contrary, it's not that they're Rishayim, they're evil ones. On the contrary, they're the ones to teach us the entire idea of davening with a minyan. And talking about davening with a minyan, let's go straight to Kunter Semayan, which also talks about davening with a minyan, of all things.
That's what it means, like on their level. If we had the people nowadays that say, I don't want to go to Israel because we should would judge them the same level.
Yes, some people said, I don't want to go to Eretz Yisrael because this, that. Listen, the mitzvah of Yishuv Haaretz, of dwelling, settling in the land of Israel, is a mitzvah, but it is not one of the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. And I mean, there's many svarim on it. A very famous sefer called Ema Ban Smecha, which goes through all the shittas, the opinions. It's definitely not. It's Rabbanan, and there's many things that we do to help the settlement of the land of Eretz Yisrael. But anyways, at this point, we have also a vadai, a definite, and a suffix, and a non-definite. The definitive is that all around the world there are millions of Yidden, millions of Jews who are literally waiting. And when could someone teach me a Jewish word? When could someone elevate me? And you can't reach those Jews if you're inside the land of Israel, outside of Israel. And if Hashem places each one of us in a place where we're meant to have the mission that only we can do and no one else can do. And therefore, to take someone away from the mission which Hashem put them, say you should be going to Eretz Yisrael, to Israel, is saying that my plans make sense to, or even though Hashem planned it this way, it should be like that. Rabbi Bernhard from South Africa, if you used to come visit here very often, Mrs. Nami Friedman's father, is a rabbi in South Africa, and he really, really wanted to move to Eretz Yisrael, to Israel, many times. And there's a beautiful letter, one day I'll bring it on the screen, of his daughter wrote to the Rebbe. Rebbe, my father is someone who's a Talmid Chacham, and he really wants to go to Israel, but I know that you are a tzaddik, and he's only staying in South Africa because you told him to. But it's his entire desire. So could you please let him go to Eretz Yisrael? He wasn't yet a chassid at that point.
Oh, wow.
And the Rebbe says, I'm so happy to read how you appreciate the greatness of your father and how good you write about him. And being, as you love your father so much, and you only want to know what's good for him, and the best thing for him is to be over here in this place. Yes, and there's a mission for everyone, for every single person in the place that they're meant to be. And Hashem etzadik ever kainanu. This over here, Maimer Chavches, the last, this is a home stretch. You could say this is the between third base and home plate for Kunter Sumayan, one short chapter of Kunter Sumayan. And now he's going to just recap, Rabbi Shabo recap a takeaway. If you could take away, in short, something from Kunter Sumayan, from everything we learned here, what should you take away? And that's going to be this one paragraph, this chapter. See over here, it's not too long. Although I don't think we'll finish it today. So Toichen Advarim Ve'inyin Umayim Beis Hashem Yatza V'Hishka. What we have touched upon in this entire kuntres, this essay of a wellspring comes out from the house of Hashem and watered the shittim. So we'll continue with that tomorrow. I'm just going to bring the pasuk, the verse. It's talking about when Mashiach comes. In Yoel, the Hoya v'yomehu, verse 18 on the screen. It shall come to pass on that day, and the mountains, Yitru harim asis, the mountains shall drip with wine. Hagvois tilach nechalav, the hills shall flow with milk, and with the plenty which will be in the Holy Land. All the springs of Yehuda will flow with water, means no more drought, only blessing. And the spring shall emanate from the house of Hashem and water the valley of the Shittim. And as Rashi says, there are two meanings over here, and we brought from the beginning the Pirush explanation of the Radak. What it means is that the water, according to the simple meaning, is literally a spring will go out from the Holy Temple, and it will water the Shittim Valley, and the Shittim Valley will now become blossoming. And the Medrash means that there was a sin the Jews did in a place called Shittim, where the Jews coming straight out of the desert, first time they bump into a foreign nation, right? The nation of Moav and Midian. They meet the foreign nations, and they become drawn astray by the daughters, all the girls of the foreign nations, and many of them marry girls from these non-Jewish women, and there was a big plague at that time, and it took Pinchas to stop the plague, and to atone for it. Mashiach, the true atonement for it is only going to happen when Mashiach comes, because the Jewish people are in such a great pinnacle after 40 years of learning Torah from Moshe, not having to work. Imagine having learned being in yeshiva for 40 years and having just literally days before witnessed the tremendous miracle and blessings when Bilam tried to curse the Jews on different occasions, and Hashem changed it to blessings, and literally days later you're going and cohabitating and sinning with the daughters of your enemies, Moav, who tried to destroy you. It's like, can you think of a bigger the Jewish people were not ready. We see being in the desert didn't prepare them for life yet in Eretz Yisrael. And the true atonement will only be when Mashiach comes. But more than this, as we explained over here, throughout the entire Kuntres Mayan, is that Shittim is idea of shtus, which means folly, the extremism. And the extremism will be watered from a spring from the house of Hashem. From the level of Chachma, from the depths of the person, you will have the spring taking the shtus by going in a way of shtus of Kedusha, foolishness of holiness, extremism in holiness and good things, that will turn over the foolishness and all the nonsense of this world to Kedusha. So Shekayach, thank you for joining, everybody.